Hello, folks. Welcome to AGH at Home. This is Workshop Wednesday, and my name is Tyler. It is 3:30, and I'm going to give you guys a couple of moments to kind of get settled and get ready. All of the materials that you'll need today are in the description below, so you can take a quick look at that. We're going to be making patches that you can either clip or pin onto something, or you can sew it onto something like clothes or a jacket or a backpack. You can put it on a keychain, anything like that. I have some examples. They're all down here. I'll tilt it down in a second. But the main things that you're going to need today are felt, or really any kind of fabric. You don't have to use felt. I have a whole bag of extra fabric in here, and a lot of this is like, like an old tablecloth, or like an old shirt. Like you can use the sleeves or something like that. It doesn't have to be, this felt stuff. And you can go the sewing route if you want, or you can go with just gluing. So today I'm going to do a little bit of both, so that if you want to do the sewing, then you'll have a bit, you'll sort of see an example of how to do that. And if you don't want to do the sewing and you want to just use some glue, then you'll be able to use that instead. So the other materials that I have handy are a glue gun with some hot glue sticks. You can also use white glue for this if you don't feel comfortable using a sewing needle or a glue gun. So let's take a look at some of the other things here, and we will get started in a moment. So you can see I have a couple examples made up. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of these and talk about how I made them, and then we'll make one or two here together. If you don't have fabric or felt, you can also, honestly, you can use really anything. Like this is foam paper. You can use that if you want. I think you can get like a pack of this stuff, or you can get a pack of felt at like most dollar stores. And that stuff usually works out pretty well. Okay, so I have here 2 avocados. One of them, this one, was made all by stitching with needle and thread. I use embroidery thread because you can get it in lots of different colors, and it's nice and thick. And you can also split it into pieces to get sort of a thinner or a thicker line, depending on what you want. And this one was done with the glue gun, and you can see there's not much of a difference there, just in how I made it. And this one also made with the glue. I think this one was actually made with white glue. Sometimes the white glue doesn't stick completely right away, so you might need to add more. And if you want to use a hot glue gun but you're not comfortable with it, you can always ask someone for help. I've got a couple tacos here. These are fun. They've got like stuff on the inside, which is cool. Princess Bubblegum, except her little gem kind of fell off, which is too bad. But the thing about this one especially, and maybe the flower, the flower is good to show you, is I've got a couple layers of things, but then underneath I've got the entire thing like one base shape, and then I've got like a pin back. Here you can also use a safety pin for that. I've also got a pair of scissors. These scissors are nice and sharp. And I use only fabric on these. It's okay to use a pair of scissors on fabric that you already use for paper, but if you use a pair of scissors for fabric, and then you're only using it for fabric, and then you use it for paper, it'll kind of like it's not super great for the scissors. It'll make them dull quicker. So if you have a pair of scissors and you keep it only for fabric, it'll stay nice and sharp and cut your fabric for much longer. All right, so let's move some of this stuff out of the way here, maybe down here, so you can still kind of see it a little bit. So you can have a couple of ideas. And if you're not sure what you want to start with, I always recommend starting with a shape. I've got a couple here sort of cut into small shapes, small pieces. Gather up some colors that kind of speak to you. Maybe choose some colors like these ones. I feel like these ones kind of go together. These are going to be my taco colors. And you can think about, maybe what your favorite food is, or your favorite activity, or just kind of, something little like that. Put those in the camera there. Okay, so the taco I'm going to do with the glue. Make sure my glue gun is ready. And you can also start with a shape, like a circle. That's how I started. The tennis one, I just sort of cut a circle and then, cut out some things and glued them on top to make kind of a badge. So for the taco, I'm going to use this nice big one here. I'm going to cut this into whatever the open version of a taco shell would be. So it could be a circle, or it could be an oval, depending on what kind of tacos you like to eat. And when you're cutting stuff, especially in these sort of first stages, what I would highly recommend you do is, I'm going to cut out this oval. Instead of taking a brand new sheet of felt, cutting in the middle, and then cutting an oval out, essentially leaving me with a sheet of felt with something in the middle, what I'm going to do instead is sort of cut a section off the corner, and then I'm going to save this for later. And now, instead of a big circle cut out in the middle, I've just got a little piece cut out of the corner. I've got all this big section ready to go for something later. So again, this is the kind of thing, I'm sure that you've had someone, maybe a teacher or someone, tell you to not cut stuff out of the middle. And yeah, it just saves a lot of material. So, all right, so I've got my oval, and you can kind of fold it to see, is that a good taco shape? That's kind of tall, so maybe I'll make it a little bit shorter. Just kind of trim some of the edges off like that. There we go. And I am going to save, these little pieces, but like this, I'm going to save that. I might, looks kind of like a banana shape or something. I'm going to save that for later. Okay, now I'm going to decide what I want to go in my taco. And I'm going to make sure that I cut it all to fit. And if you want, you can always use a marker first ahead of time to cut. Or you can also use, well, I don't have my other pair of scissors, but you can use a sheet of paper and you can sketch, maybe I want my lettuce to look like that. You can sketch that out, cut this out, and this can be sort of something that you can use to trace. I'm just going to sort of do this freehand, and I'm going to cut this, and then I probably only need that much. Okay, so I'm going to save that for later. Make sure it fits. Great. And now I'm going to cut some little V's out of the top. or little triangles. I'm just cutting little ones going this way, and it off like that. So I get this sort of jagged top. Okay, pop that in there. And I'm going to use this green as well, and maybe this one. That one's probably just fine. I'll just put it in there just like that. And this one, you know what? I don't like that green. That's kind of not for this. These two greens are perfect. And now I want some tomatoes in my taco. So I'm going to cut that down a little bit. And this time I'm going to kind of cut more rounded. Like that. And if you would like to instead, you know, cut out little circles for your tomatoes and put them in there and everything, you know, you can do that. That's fine. But now I've got these, you know, really small, tiny, finicky bits. So, you know, if you're fine using that, then that's great, but you don't have to. All right. So now I've got some lettuce and some tomatoes. I'm just going to keep this as a veggie taco. Maybe I'll throw some cheese on there. So I've got a little bit of orange here. And I don't know, my cheese is just going to be that shape, I guess, like that. Okay, so I've cut all my pieces out, and now I'm going to assemble them. You'll notice that I cut everything out before I started assembling, so that way I can see, you know, I can make sure that it's all gonna work. All right, let me trim a little bit off of this. All right, so now I'm going to start with my big one, my green lettuce, and I'm going to put a bit of glue right on the taco that's flat on the table instead, not on this, because I'm holding this and I have a higher risk of accidentally kind of like putting it on my thumb or my fingers and hurting or burning myself here. So I'm going to put a few little squirts and dots on there. And then I'm going to place that down gently. And then now I'm just going to kind of stack everything up. My light green lettuce, got two different flavors of lettuce on there. And my delicious tomatoes from the garden. There we go. And let's throw some cheese on there too. Why not? Let's do it this way. So I'm just very gently placing the ingredients or the pieces down. And I'm kind of letting, at this point, I'm just kind of letting gravity do the work. I don't need to press on it a lot, because then I'm going to push and the glue might sort of smear out and I might touch it with my fingers and that might hurt a lot. And then you get these big strings. All right, so the last part is we need to fold, well, not the last part, the next part is we need to fold this over and finish our taco. So I'm going to put a few little dots in there. And really, you only need a few. I've put 4 on there. I could have done less. And this one, I might have to hold it down a little bit so that it stays. That stuff does dry pretty quickly. And there is my taco. Now I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I put my pin back, or my safety pin on it. So by pin back, I have these. They have this little turny thing, and then the needle kind of pops out. If you don't have those, like I said, safety pins work fine, or if you know exactly where you want it to go, like if you want to sew it onto, a bag or a jacket or something like that, or a shirt, then you can just sew it directly on. But while I wait for this to dry, I'm going to work on another one that is not using any glue. So if you want to do the sewing, I'm going to just briefly show you how I might approach that. So I'm going to keep it a little simpler this time in terms of design. I've just got a rectangle that is brown and then a yellow banana shape for a banana. Might trim that to make it a little bit straighter. Okay, so I've already done this ahead of time. I've put my needle on my thread. I've got a nice long thread here. That might be too long, but I've got a knot tied at the back, or sorry, at the end, and then I've threaded it through. I've left my embroidery thread as thick as it comes so that it's easier for you guys to see on the camera. Maybe I'll turn this light on. No, that makes it worse. Okay, so if you want to, you can use something to sort of keep it in place, like a safety pin. It's actually not a bad idea, so maybe I'll do that right now. Just try not to poke yourself. All right, so when I'm sewing, and I'll say this ahead of time, I'm not, a professional sewer person. I really enjoy sewing. It's really fun. I'm not that great at it, but I do quite enjoy it. And it is, I'll show you at least some simple techniques that you can use. And you can probably find, a little sewing kit at almost any corner store. They come with needles. They usually come in like little packs, needles that are like, that have the eye holes that are all sorts of different colors or sizes, sorry. And you can even get, nice big plastic ones that you can sew like with yarn, which is super cool. And they're plastic and they're not very pointy, so those are good ones to start on if you have small hands and you're worried about getting pricked. So this is the back, that's the front. So I'm going to start at the back so that when I pull it all the way through, the little knot at the end goes to the back. So I'm going to poke my needle through like this, pulling it all the way through. Okay. And then I'm going to jump forward a little bit, just a wee little bit, pulling it all the way through. All right. So now I've made one little stitch and it's being held together there. So now I can decide how I want to continue my stitching. So I can do sort of a dotted line stitch. So on the back, I'm going to come back through like this, pulling it all the way through. And if you yank it tight, it'll do that. So just kind of pull it until it's kind of like snug, right? So it's sitting there. It's not too loose, but it's not sort of flopping all over the place. Now to make a dotted line, I'm going to go forward like this. And to make a solid line, I'm going to go backwards. So I'm actually going to show you the solid line first. So I pulled it through and now I'm going to put my needle in right where my first dash, my first stitch has ended. Okay, so I'm going to pull that all the way through. And I'm going to keep doing that. So I'm going to jump ahead. It's like you're taking one step forward underneath. And then you take a step back to fill up that space. Big step forward. And little step back. Okay, and that's how I did the avocado here. I did that all the way around until I got to until I got to the end. Now, if you want the dotted line, or if you want the dotted line, you start the same way you did before, do a big jump forward. You can see I'm always kind of starting from the bottom and poking up through the fabric. Okay. And instead of going backwards to fill up that space, I'm going to go forwards. Like that. And big jump forward again. And a little jump forward. And this is a way that you can kind of cover more ground quickly. It won't be as strong of a hold, which is fine, but you can kind of go quicker. And then I'll leave it at that as far as sewing techniques go. I'm sure there's lots and lots of different ways that you can do interesting stitches that'll look really nice. I don't know a lot of them, but if you just kind of you can Google them, you can look them up on the internet, or even on YouTube, you can watch people make, if you search up different sewing techniques. And you see there, I went back to the straight line. I'm sure that there's, an official name, like an actual name for it, like the, I don't know, straight stitch or the dotted stitch or whatever. But to me, it is a straight line. All right, so I'm going to pause there, and so now to finish this off, I would go all the way around this side. And then maybe I would use the brown thread to sort of stitch in some lines so that it would look like my banana had banana lines. Then I can take my safety pin out because I don't need that anymore. It's kind of holding it. Now what I need to do is I need my thread. I need to tie it off. So now the brown on brown is going to be hard to see. So let's get a piece of white here so that you can see better what I'm doing. And I'm just going to quickly sew that to the back. All right, so you've been sewing along and you're ready to tie it up. And now what you want to do is you want to make your tying up at the back. And what I do, and this, this might not be the best way. Again, there might be a better way to do this, is on the back, you can see your line of stitching is there. And you're going to want to thread that through underneath one of those stitches like that, pull it through, and you want to do that a couple of times so that you're essentially tying, and I'm not going through the fabric, I'm just going under, just looping it under there. So I'm essentially tying my thread to itself. And if you want, you can tie a knot in there. Put it through that loop again until it is secure, and then give that a snip. So your knots, they are all on the back. All right. So now if you want to, you can leave this the way it is, or you can cut around. Like I think it's kind of cool, like on a rectangle. But another thing that you can do is once you've sort of done that, this is what I did with the avocado and with the sunflower here, is now I'm going to sort of cut around. sort of leaving a little, the brown there as a border, which makes my banana patch kind of stick out kind of like that. Okay. So there we go. We've got a glued together one and a sewn one. Now we want to sort of find a way that we could put this, that we can stick it to something. And like I said, you can sew something directly onto something else. So let's pretend this piece of white fabric is a backpack, and I want to put my banana on the backpack. So I'm going to put it on there. You might need some help with this one if you don't have a lot of sewing experience, and you're not sure what to do. Ask someone for some help. There's lots of people who know how to sew. And then I'm going to sort of sew in and out, kind of the same way that I sewed the yellow to the brown together, except I'm sewing this entire thing to my new, like the piece of clothing or the bag. Now, if you want to change that, then you're going to have to unsew and sort of unstitch it to get it off and to put it on something. So that's where these suckers come in real handy, where you can pin something to it and then you can take it off and put it back on. So with my glue gun, I'm going to figure out which one is the back. That looks good for the front, and then that'll be the back. So I'm going to put 2 little dots of glue on there, and then very gently place that sucker in there. But I want to be careful not to get the little pin part stuck in the glue. Otherwise it won't open. And that's how you get this. And then this opens up, and I could pin that to my backpack or my shirt, or my jacket or anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to give that a couple of minutes to dry. And let's do the same on the banana. The safety pin method doesn't require any glue. I'm just going to sort of put my safety pin. How would I do that? Just going to kind of put it in there so it's on, and then I'm going to sort of pin it to something with the safety pin. The only difference is it's not glued in there, which you could glue it on if you wanted to. Just like that. But you want to be careful with these because they have sharp points. Oh, I've got one more of these. Yep, so I might as well just use this. Put that on there. And then my banana patch is finished. Well, I haven't sewed up there. I'll finish that later on, but I will, now it's ready to go clip on something. So there you have it, folks. That is our felt and fabric patches workshop for today. These are the ones that we made today, the taco and the banana, and I'll bring out my other examples. There's lots of ideas in here. This one, I don't know how well you can see. I just took a piece of black fabric and I just sort of stitched a picture in it. So you don't even have to sew or glue pieces of fabric to each other. You can always do it that way as well. And there we have it. Thanks for joining us again, folks. It's been a pleasure. It's been very nice to be spending the afternoon together, and we'll see you next time.